let's talk about how to have a healthy relationship with your family. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting and good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, education, all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. In this video, we're going to be talking about what things that you can do and put into practice in order to create those good, healthy relationships. In this video, we're going to talk about what it means to have a healthy relationship, and then what some of the key skills and principles and things that you can start doing today to have a healthy relationship in your family. I'm known all over the world for teaching self-government. When I teach about self-government and do a full training on that, that can take up to 3 days. So I'm going to try to give you right now just some key nuggets of wisdom and tips that you can use to take away and start using right now today, and hopefully give you some resources that could be beneficial. So, what does it mean to have a healthy family relationship? Well, I suppose it's easiest for us to learn what is healthy by examining what we know is not healthy. People know that it does not feel healthy to emotionally unload on each other, such as yelling and anger and violence, or withdrawal and not talking to people or opening up to other people. All of those things are signs that a relationship is not healthy. Or some people might even consider the relationship non-existent. Now, within a family, even if you pull away from your family and you say, I'm never going to talk to my family members again, you still always have a relationship with them. Because what a relationship really is, it's the way that you think about your family. So within a family where there are 4 people, there are actually 16 relationships. I have a relationship with each of those 3 other family members, and then they all have relationships with me. But I also have a relationship with myself. So the way I see myself is my relationship. The way I see my spouse is my relationship with him. So my family is a lot bigger now than 4 people. In fact, we had 6, and now we're up to many more because of the people who've married in and the grandchildren. We keep developing more and more relationships over time. And those relationships within the family become more complex because each person has complete control over their relationship. So what do you do to help develop a healthy relationship? Well, the number one thing that you do is you take personal responsibility for your relationships, for everything on your side of every one of these relationships. So if I'm having a hard time with my husband, let's say, then I'm going to own up what my problems are in that relationship. And this is going to be a true story I'm going to tell you. There was a time where my husband and I had a lot of conflict. We're both very strong-willed people. We like to be in control of things. This is not good for relationships unless both people also can learn some humility, some meekness, how to compromise and get along, right? So there was a time early on in our relationship where we would butt heads. And I remember thinking, it's all him. It's all him. And I remember that every time I said it's all him, he would come back at me and say, well, what about you? What about this with you? What about this with you? And so we would have these power struggles that would exist. And sometimes they would never get resolved. They just kept going indefinitely on and on and on. Then there was a point where I found myself kneeling one day in prayer, because I'm a prayerful person, and I was praying that God would change my husband. And then suddenly, this truth came to mind. I love God for that. I just thank Him for that. But this truth came to mind. Is he the only one that needs to change? Are you sure that you're going to feel better if he changes? Oh no. Suddenly, here I was, faced with a truth. I was part of the problem, and I had to analyze me. And so I did. And I changed my approach entirely. Every time I was frustrated at him, I would go to the Lord in prayer and I would say, okay, show me what's wrong with me. Tell me what's wrong with me. I need to make a change. And I developed a habit of looking first at myself and what I could change about me. And then you know what? Whether he was changing or not changing, it actually didn't matter. I was happier. I was more pleasant. I was more able to serve and help other people around me. It changed the dynamic of the relationship with my children because I changed the relationship with my spouse. That's how relationships happen. One relationship can have a domino effect for all of the relationships in our lives. So it's super vital that we create a change. Now, if you remember nothing else that I'm going to tell you after this point, which by the way, I am going to tell you other things after this point. If you've already subscribed to this channel, then you know I talk a lot about skills, and we're going to get into some skills and some principles of self-government here in this video. But if you remember nothing else, please remember that you can change your focus in any relationship. Are you focusing on how they are making you feel? Or are you focusing on how you are making you feel? You get to choose that. That part you have complete control over. And as a person who kind of likes to have control, because that's just in my strong-willed nature, once I turned that piece on myself, it was a game changer. Now suddenly I didn't feel the need to control anyone else around me, just myself. And this transformed my family and all of my relationships. So let's talk about some of these key things that you can do. You probably know that I've written some books. There are some key books that I want to bring your attention to. So I've written 11 books about parenting at this point in my life. I can't say that there won't ever be some other helpful thing because I am working on some stuff right now. But these two books are by far the most popular. Then comes probably the children's books. These books, Roles, The Secret to Family, Business, and Social Success, and Parenting a House United, give us some vital skills and principles for self-government. So let's start number one with Roles, because if you're going to read these two books, I would actually recommend reading the Roles book first and then going to Parenting a House United. In the Roles book, we learn how important it is to identify family roles. So this doesn't mean responsibilities like who takes out the trash or who brings home a paycheck, nothing like that. Instead, the roles are different than that. The roles are who you are to each other. Are you the confidant? Are you the one who they go to for comfort? Are you the one who is kind of the moral authority in the family? Is that what everyone looks to you for? Are you the one that teaches people to step out of their comfort zones? Are you the one who is that heart and hearthstone for the family? Are you a protector for the family? Are you a nurturer for the family? Are you a teacher or are you a learner? Do you set an example? These are all different roles that people within families have. And children have roles too. So there's the parent role and the child role in a broad sense. Then there's like oldest child role versus, youngest child role. And then there's also like mother role and father role. We all look to each other for different things. And if we don't have a person there to fill that role for us, we end up with a blank, with kind of a void. And this makes it difficult for us. So it is important that we acknowledge who we are. This develops identity and cohesion within the family. Families that do not take time to establish and live by their roles within the family unit usually develop higher levels of dysfunction, where the children won't listen to parents, or maybe they won't respect the teaching from the parents because they don't see themselves as learners, perhaps. Or maybe the children don't feel like they should step out of their comfort zone ever. So the parents aren't doing any teaching. And so this makes it so that the children don't launch correctly and don't become adults next and start their own families, which is usually the process that a person goes through in life. What do we do to establish and maintain these roles? We need to have deliberate conversations about roles. That's number one. And then when we're having our family communications with each other, we need to have a way where we can communicate with each other in healthy ways. So that brings me to the Parenting a House United book. Now that book is just one piece of a greater program of learning self-government. The Teaching Self-Government website, teachingselfgovernment.com, has a lot of courses and trainings and help helps. But the one key piece that I like people to usually start with is that book, Parenting a House United. Within the book, Parenting a House United, I teach parents and youth the skills and principles of self-government. For instance, there are 4 basic skills of self-government. Parents and children both need to learn these 4 basic skills. They are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. I actually have a children's book set, and there's 4 books in it, and each one of those 4 books teaches one of those 4 basic skills to children so that they can start learning those adult skills. But I gotta tell you, there's a lot of parents that don't know how to disagree appropriately with each other. There are a lot of parents that don't know how to accept no answers and drop the subject on things, just like the children are struggling with. So these 4 basic skills, as you prepare to teach them to the children, will help you as well in all of your relationships. How great would it be if we could always disagree appropriately with each other? Let's just talk about that one skill. That one skill, disagree appropriately, is what I call the gateway skill to self-government. It disengages the midbrain, which is the emotional brain, and it engages the prefrontal cortex, which brings the brain activity toward the front part of the brain. This is required for problem solving and to actually have appropriate bonding. Otherwise, you end up having something, people call it like a trauma bond, where you get angry at each other and then for some reason you feel close to each other because of that. That's an unhealthy type of bonding. If we can bond in a productive type of communication, then this will create good relationships for the future. So what are the steps to disagreeing appropriately? They are to look at the person. This establishes a connection. Keep a calm face, voice, and body. Say that you understand the other person's point of view. Share your point of view. Listen to what they have to say okay, and drop the subject. Now, saying okay doesn't mean you necessarily agree, but you're saying, okay, well, that's your opinion or that's your decision, and I'm recognizing that I don't get to control you, so I'm going to say okay about that. That doesn't mean that I might not still keep working toward whatever it is I feel like I need to, okay? So those are the 7 steps of disagreeing appropriately, when a person can learn how to communicate effectively, and then when they don't get their way, be able to drop the subject at the end. Think of what that does for the relationships in our family. Think of the communication that opens up. Now, what about when you need to correct something with the children? Well, in my TSG parenting course and in that book, Parenting a House United, I talk about 5 different teaching styles that parents need to teach their children. So those 5 parenting styles help the parent know what to do and say when the child is doing something positive, or when the child is doing something that needs correction, when the child is even going completely out of control, or when the parent wants to initiate a type of conversation with the child. These skills are a deliberate type of culturing that happens to the family. The word culture comes from the Latin word cultur, which means to strengthen, to nourish, to grow. So these 5 teaching styles are basically the 5 things that a parent does to culture or nourish the child within their identified role within the family. So everyone learns how to culture the group when they learn their role and they have a proper way to communicate. So let's just talk about one of these methods of communication, which is doing an effective correction. There are multiple steps for that. When you effectively correct a person, you do not react. Instead, what you do is you describe. You describe what happened. You describe why that wasn't a good idea. You described what should have happened. And all of this needs to be done in a non-emotional, not take it personal type of way. If you are taking things personal in your communications with your family, you're going to fall into a power struggle, and that will end up hurting your family relationships instead of making good, healthy family relationships. So after those 3 things, then you tell the child what negative consequence they've earned. I talk at length about what ones are better than others, but I'm not going to go into detail here just due to time. And then you end up practicing things the right way, going back to those 4 basic skills that you used before. Then you're going to be praising. So you'll use lots of praising as you're working with your children so that it feels like a very comfortable, very happy moment of communication. Did you know that you can feel closer to your children during and after a correction than you even did before? It's true. And one of the main things that leads to you feeling closer to your children when you're correcting them or teaching them anything is the tone that you have with you. So these skills we've been talking about and the roles in the family are mostly structural elements, although roles do have a tone element as well. But in order to learn self-government, you need a certain type of a tone and structure. And I've only been just scratching the surface on the structure, as you've been able to see. So let's talk really briefly about tone. And I mean briefly because I have a gift for you that's going to help you with your tone. One of the most important tone elements is the tone calmness. If the parents are calm, it's a game changer for the whole entire family. And what does it mean to be calm? It doesn't just mean not yelling. That's different. You could be bubbling up on the inside. You could be having a dialogue that is villainizing the other person you're talking to on the inside. And then everyone feels you're not calm, even if you think you are. Calmness is a point where you actually give up. You let go of any hard feeling. You decide that it's not about you and how you feel, but it's about you and the power you carry. Calmness has a power. I actually have an entire training called The Power of Calm, where people learn how to be calm when somebody else isn't, how to help them get calm without losing their calmness at the same time. I would like to help you start on your journey to calmness by giving you a Calm Parenting Toolkit. So on my website, teachingselfgovernment.com, I have a Calm Parenting Toolkit. And right now that Calm Parenting Toolkit is free. There's 10 tools for calmness that you can have just by going to the website teachingselfgovernment.com and finding that Calm Parenting Toolkit today. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.